Welcome back to another episode of Riv Academy. I am here, fans. I told you I was going to give y'all an NBA season. I lied. I lied wholeheartedly. But I'm definitely going to give y'all some content. I'm back. I had a good Christmas. Spent that some time with my family. My son had a good thing. New Year's, that was cool too. Got some new cologne, some pajamas. When you get old, you get to a certain point where you don't really get shit anymore. You kind of get all the old people stuff. So pajamas, cologne, soap, stuff like that, like Axe and all that. But it was cool. I got a couple gift cards. It's been a hell of a season. I'll say that. I've been really tapped in with the NFL, tapped in with the NBA, and this year has been really fun. A lot of my teams have been doing well. And one of the teams I want to give some love to is the Memphis Grizzlies, who I am going to talk about today because I feel like my podcast buddies just refuse to acknowledge my Memphis Grizzlies. I hate it. Got a guest for you guys today, somebody who I've been trying to get on, but our schedule's just been all messed up. A lot of things have been happening. So without further ado, let's get him up here, man. Let's stop the games. My brother Dewey.
Let's get it.
Talk to me.
Let's get it. How about let's set a New Year's resolution? No more lying. We all got the old people shit, but no more lying, no more. We're here the rest of the season.
Yes, let's listen. We're here. Rest of the season. No more lying. New Year's resolution. Dewey, how was your Christmas? How was your New Year's?
It was good, man. It was a blessing. I'm just like you. I get a lot of old people shit now. I want to tell people just give me cash. Like, I don't feel like it's a proper thing to say. So I just take the socks. I take the fucking underwear. I take whatever I have to take and nod my head and smile. I'm like, you know what? I'm that age.
No, yeah, I'm definitely all for $20, $50. Just give me the money. I'll go do something else with it. I don't want what you gave me. But my grandmother, she got me this nice robe. So I thought that was cool. Like I used to wear a robe when I was younger, so it was dope to get that. But I see you got the Ja Morant in the background. We talked about it before. How did you become a Memphis Grizzlies fan?
Grew up here and then grew up watching Mike Conley, a different era of the Grizzlies. My God, I'm used to watching 75 to fucking 70 games. Now you got these young cats flying up and down the court. It's been fun to watch, but I grew up on that old school Zio, Marc Gasol, like high post, low block, banging against the San Antonio Spurs. So I grew up watching that. They were really nothing here until, because, down south is kind of a football type region. And then the Grizzlies, they came on the map about 2010 to 2015. And ever since then, I've been a fan.
So what was the, I guess I want to say, last year you had a down year. Team was hurt. Ja Morant was dealing with the stuff with the police and the kids and all that. It was just a lot of wacky stuff going on around Memphis. What kind of was the talk, I want to say, if you can remember, from last year, like last summer going into last season, where you guys were banged up, you had Ja Morant suspended. What was the talk in the news around Memphis at the time?
So last summer, the talk really was, let's just get through the first 25 games where we're at. Like, Ja Morant's going to miss the first 25 games. Let's see if we can try to go 500. Then once we get him back, we can make a real push to the playoffs. Obviously, we go 6-19. Ja Morant comes back for 9 games. Had a fucking highlight reel in those 9 games, but gets injured again, has to get surgery on his shoulder. And now there was no talk for the rest of the season. The building was empty. I stopped buying tickets because I didn't want to watch this shit. I didn't want to watch the fucking style of players in and out of Memphis, but there was a few silver linings. You look at Gigi Jackson, who has not played this year. They found a gem in him. Same with Vince Williams Jr., another guy who's barely played this year. But Jaren Jackson was the highlight of last season. And now the entire country is really starting to see that too. We watched it in a 21 season of him being the star, him being the go-to guy every night, but it didn't matter because they weren't winning. Now we're back to our winning ways, and you're starting to see the fruits of the labor with Jaren a little bit as well.
Yeah, so now, because last year was funky. You saw Ja Morant come back, it was probably the most electric 9 games of the season where you see him hit a game winner against the Pelicans, have 35 on his first name. Like, Ja is just an electrifying player. I wish they would, remove all the legal stuff and just put him on TV. He's one of those special guys. But now you go into this season, you're sitting at a top 3 seed. What's the energy like now in Memphis? Like, what's the talk about now?
It feels like different year, but same injury report. Like the key to the season really has been depth. Up until last week, this team was number 1 in games missed due to injury, but at the same time, they're somehow number 2 in the Western Conference. There's no better example than what happened this past Tuesday night in Phoenix. They had 9 guys on the injury report, Riv. Like Grizzlies PR, They couldn't type out this tweet. They had to take a fucking screenshot of it because there were so many characters on the injury report. You had Ja Morant on there, Marcus Smart, Gigi Jackson, Jake LaRavia, Zach Edey, Brandon Clark, Santi Aldama, Vince Williams. You even had Yuki Kawamura on this injury report. Not like it mattered, but that's how many guys were out. 4 rostered players and a bunch of two-ways go into Phoenix and beat Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. And you saw, I was talking about Jaren Jackson. He was a big part of that. I think the Phoenix game was a little bit more of an indictment on the Suns, but still, that's the point. To answer your question, I think the narrative so far with this team has been depth.
Yeah, the Suns haven't been the best thing to watch. They've also been dealing with the injuries, but you watch a team that I believe Kevin Durant and D-Book played. You watch a Grizzlies team who's been missing players all year. They're sitting at a top 3 seed. Phoenix is at the bottom of the play-in. So it's definitely more of an indictment on Phoenix. But,
Sure.
You're sitting at a top 3 seed like we talked about. What do you think has been the keys to your success early on? I know, I've been raving about Jaren Jackson and his improvement in his game, but what other little things can you tell the fans that who maybe don't tap into Memphis as much as they should, has been the keys to the success?
I think Ja being around the team has been huge too. Jaren going through what he did last year, now being a leader on the court has been big. Depth, like I just talked about, having 15 guys who can fill in and play have been huge. But having Ja Morant back around this team has been huge. You pick up Scottie Pippen because he had an incredible summer league. You have guys that really did not have chances anywhere else. Jay Huff has now been a revelation on this team. Jalen Wells, a guy who was playing Division II basketball 2 years ago, is somehow in Rookie of the Year voting through the season. Depth has been the biggest reason. Having Ja Morant back around the team and having the good vibes on the bench, and then Jaren Jackson's improvement are the three things that come to mind really so far this season.
Yeah. Jalen Wells, Santi Aldama. I mean, this team is just loaded with really good basketball players. And, credit to Jalen Jenkins. He's been able to do a fine job. Did you see, what have you seen from Ja Morant specifically that warrants a change from prior? Because I know we've noticed he doesn't dunk as much as he should. He's talked about how he wants to stay healthy. He wants to kind of try to stay on the court as much as possible. This is a guy that's been dealing with injuries throughout his year. But have you seen anything specific in his game that warrants an improvement from the last time we've seen him?
Not specifically in his game, because his on-court numbers, bro's only averaging 21 points per game. His assist numbers are up, but I think off the court is really where you see the difference. Vulnerability is a word that I would not describe Ja Morant until 2024. I had on a couple Grizzlies beat writers recently on my podcast, and they were telling me how Ja privately after games would say, look, Derrick Rose was the one who made me into a man. And then he'd go into a long spiel about how that was. Rose last year, having him around in a throwaway season, Rose took him aside and taught him how to be a franchise guy. Derrick's a guy who had the weight of a city, of a franchise across his chest at an even younger age than Ja did. So I think vulnerability, admitting fault, is something that Ja didn't do until Derrick Rose really started to come around. So I think off the court has been the big improvement with Ja this season, and he's still suffered injuries. Whenever I have a word to describe him, it's been concerning with how many injuries he had. We saw the LA Lakers thing where he went up for a lob, got undercut, and hurt that hip. Now he's out with a shoulder injury that is the same shoulder that was operated on this time last season. So I'm hoping he can continue to play basketball on the court, but off the court is where I've really seen the most improvement out of him.
Yeah, it's really tough to watch him just continuously get hurt, with the way his game style is. I think he's dealing with an AC sprain, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so it's like week to week. They'll monitor it. Hope Ja gets back really soon. Jaren Jackson has been the best player on your team this year. He has been the most important player, the most valuable player, the best player. He's been the engine of this team. What improvements have you seen from him? I'm sure you probably watched more Grizzlies games last year than most regular fans did because of, the fact that's your team. What have you seen in his game that's shown that he's taking them right strides and getting this team to where it needs to?
It's been between the ears. He's always in attack mode now. He was one of the guys that would let the game come to him, hit a couple trail threes, and if he got a post up, he would go with it. But now you see the ball in his hands a lot more. He's bringing the ball up the court offensively, looking for his shot, which is something he really didn't do his first few in the league. defensively, I think he's a lot more switchable on the back end, because the way he won that Defensive Player of the Year a couple years ago was basically being a free safety and swatting the shit out of everybody. Now you kind of taken the fouls out of the equation. His foul trouble has been a constant with Jaren up until this point in his career. He's not fouling nearly as much. He's a lot more switchable. And on the offensive end, he attacks a lot more.
Yeah, Jaren's touch around the rim has been, really the big part of his game that's improved. And I think now him being more aggressive, him coming down, taking pull-up threes, him taking guys off the dribble, whether it's small, big, him exploiting mismatches has really something that's been huge for this team. Now,
for sure,
you're sitting as a top 3 seed right now. We saw you guys kind of be in the mix for Dorian Finney-Smith. I thought the package was fine. A top 15 protected first-round pick. Kind of better than a few seconds in my mind, because I feel like you guys are going to be in the playoffs, so that pick is going to convey. Do you think a trade is necessary to improve this team? I know you got 12, 13, 14 solid players that play a lot of minutes. Do you see a trade coming? And if you do, what's a guy that's on your mind?
I think in caps, yes, there needs to be a trade. Dorian Finney-Smith was on my mind. I'll talk about him a little bit, and then I'll get into the other guy. But I was so mad with that Finney-Smith situation, Rib, because all my buddies were texting me what happened to DFS, what happened to DFS. And there were really 3 things that Brooklyn chose in LA's package that Memphis did not offer. By now, we all know that it was D'Angelo Russell, Maxwell Lewis in 3 seconds. Allegedly, Memphis offered Luke Kennard, John Conchar, and a first-round pick. John Conchar was the problem. This year, Sean Marks, the Nets GM, has been adamant that he wants expiring contracts on the book so he can have as much space as possible. And Luke Kennard was on that expiring deal. He checks that box. But John Conchar is set to make $6 million next year. And Maxwell Lewis, he's not on in the Lakers guard, but he's younger and he only makes $2 million. That's a $4 million difference that will be off the books, off the books for the cap space for the Brooklyn Nets. I don't know what the fuck they're going to spend it on, but that has been a priority of theirs. D'Angelo Russell, Luke Kennard and John Conchar are not D'Angelo Russell. It makes your team fun, but also makes them worse. And that kind of checks the box. Okay, we'll sell some tickets, but we're not going to fuck up our lottery odds either. So I think the third reason really is the draft pick situation as well, because yes, the Grizzlies offered a first, which the Lakers didn't, but Brooklyn is sitting there as like, our second round pick is going to be pretty similar to the Grizzlies' first round pick. So if we have the asset, why do we look at that as a plus and be like, oh shit, we're getting Luke Kennard and John Conchar? So I think money, D'Angelo Russell in that draft pick situation is why that Brooklyn, chose LA at the last minute. And now looking at targets, I hope Cam Johnson can, our guys can have a conversation with Brooklyn's people about Cam Johnson, but I think his price is going to be a lot higher than DFS. So they need a long perimeter defender. The difference between the Grizzlies and Oklahoma City Thunder, if I'm being honest, is OKC has great perimeter defenders at every fucking position. Grizzlies don't have that. They don't have the switchability that the Oklahoma City Thunder do, and that's what they need to be targeting.
Would you buy low on a player of Brandon Ingram's caliber?
No, it's a culture thing, because you look at what Ja's been through the past 2 years. He doesn't need a dude coming and hooping with AirPods high as fuck on the court with him. Like, I just don't think it's a culture fit with Ja Morant. Like, you need older guys. A lot of my friends here locally, like, they want to ship off Marcus Smart for a bag of chips. And I'm like, look, the fit's not ideal, but Marcus Smart was the one screaming at people in the huddle during our 20-win season last year. I love Ja, I love Dez, I love Aaron, but neither one of those 3 guys are going to do it. If we bring Brandon Ingram in, one, yes, the fit makes sense on paper, but the culture around Ja is what I'm focused on most.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Memphis has always been culture first. They've always been, about the building, about the guys they have, that veteranship, that leadership. So I respect that. So Brandon Ingram is somebody I bring up because he's very not movable, but he's somebody who the Pelicans want to move, and you could probably buy low on his deal. He's making a good amount of money, but he's on an expiring. What's your first? Let me ask you this: going back to you being a fan of Mike Conley and them boys, just backtrack real quick. Did you ever think y'all had a chance? Like, and not just, I don't want to say win a championship because I feel like people that's so far-fetched sometimes, and I feel like you don't always have to shoot for the stars. But did you feel like you had a legit chance to make a Western Conference Finals a few times, maybe be in real competition to just get there multiple times? Because I believe you guys didn't make it with Conley, Zach, and Marcus. So you were close, but you didn't make it. So did you ever think you had a chance?
We made it in 2011. We weren't supposed to. We upset the Spurs and obviously got swept. We have not won a Western Conference Finals in the history of our franchise. But I think that's a great question because I think back to as a kid, people went to Grizzlies games to see the other team. Yes, we love Conley. Yes, we love Zebo and fucking Marc Gasol, but it's different than New York, right? Like when the Lakers are in town, there was Laker fans that would take over the arena. When the Knicks were in town, there was New York fans that would take over the arena. Now we go to the arena to see 12. That's it. Is Ja Morant playing? Is he not? I don't feel like we had a chance back then, realistically. You're not going to win the NBA Finals, even in 2012, scoring 80 to 85 points per game. Now, I feel like the ceiling is higher. I don't think the ceiling's an NBA Finals for this current roster of the Memphis Grizzlies, but I feel like the ceiling is higher. Back then, it was just like, all right, let's just compete and see if we can make it. Now, the expectation is a little bit more than that.
So you think ceiling this year, you're sitting around, you got OKC, you got Houston, Dallas is hovering, you got teams like Denver. Who's a team that you think would give you the most problems?
My expectation for this team is really the second round. That's a realistic expectation that I want to see. I think they're like ceilings of conference finals. And the two teams that would keep up as a Grizzlies fans, obviously the Dallas Mavericks, the reigning Western Conference champion. But one that not a lot of people talk about, and I think would give both the Grizzlies and the Thunder problems, is the LA Lakers, especially now with DFS. And putting him back into that really gives them what they're missing and have missed without Kentavious Caldwell-Pope for these last 3 to 4 years. So the Lakers, they're grown-ass men. They can defend their asses off. And when the game slows down, the Grizzlies are number one in pace, but where they have problems is in the half court. And the Lakers love to play slow. So did the Dallas Mavericks with Luka dominating the ball. So I think the Mavericks and the Lakers are the two teams that really give the Grizzlies problems. And if they run into them in the playoffs, I would pick the Mavs or the Lakers.
Yeah, and you watched a team. I was watching you guys play the Clippers, and how did the Clippers be able to get that game? Slowed the pace down.
Yep.
Slowed the pace down, make you guys commit a lot of turnovers. And you guys are number one in pace. You guys move the ball. I think for the Grizzlies, it's really all about just getting that, I don't want to say experience because I feel like you have that, but I feel like this is different than when you guys were a top 3 seed prior. Like this is so much different where you see Jaren be that guy you want him to be. You see Ja still be that guy. Desmond Bane is starting to pick it up. And I think for you as a fan, having kind of two different timelines where you had Zebo, you had Conley, you had Marc Gasol, and now you have Ja, Bane, Jaren. I had a couple fan questions that I want to ask you that just came off my mind. How many playoff, give me your top 3 playoff series you've watched from the Memphis Grizzlies?
I think number one, the first one that comes to mind is that Grizzlies Warriors in 2022. Like if God does not go out in that game 3, I don't know if the Warriors would have won that championship. You ask Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, they said their hardest series, despite playing Boston in the NBA Finals, was the Grizzlies. It was a matchup problem for them. They love to play a track meet with teams, and we love that too. I think that was my favorite series to watch because you think about it, bro. Game 1, I think Draymond Green gets thrown out in Memphis, flips off the crowd. Game 2, Dillon Brooks breaks the code on, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Gary Payton. Game 3, you had the controversy of the Jordan Poole Ja Morant incident. And game 4, 5, and 6. Game 5, without Ja, the Grizzlies annihilate the Warriors by, I think, 30 to 40 points at home, and then lose in game 6 because Dillon Brooks starts Dillon Brooksing. That's the number 1 series. Number 2, I think, would be the only series win for this current version of the Grizzlies, and that's the Timberwolves. It's Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns trying to prove themselves. It went 6 games longer than it should. That was the year Patrick Beverley acted like he won the NBA Finals in the play-in tournament. Yeah. And I think the series 3 would go back to 2015 with Tony Allen, first team all defense, again against the Warriors.
And that series was interesting because you guys had an opportunity. You were up 2-1, and then Steph Curry started being Steph Curry. He woke up. Now give me your top 5. I want 5 Grizzlies that you've ever liked. It could be a role player, could be a star. Just give me your 5.
Yeah, I think Ja's number 1, Tony Allen number 2, because Tony just embodied the city. I think Desmond Bane is a number 3. Jaren Jackson's 4. I love Zebo. I love Mark, but give me Mike Conley at number 5.
Mike Conley at 5?
Yeah. Us like shorter point guards. I played only until like 10th grade, and I was lefty, so I just had a soft spot for him, bro. But until my career was over, it's like, all right, I want to be Mike Conley. Oh yeah, bro.
Mike Conley was dope. Mike Conley was dope.
Back in the day, he's having a rough year this year. We're not talking about him. We're not talking about 2024 Mike Conley.
No, he's really been bad this year, but nobody talks about it. Mike Conley's longevity is pretty impressive. Like him, Kyle Lowry. Like we talk about LeBron all the time because it's LeBron, but those dudes are still in the league. Nick Batum, like there's a lot of still quality, solid players that's just been playing for so long.
For sure, bro. And I want to go back real quick because you had said right before you asked that question, this is like a different team than it's been in years past. And you're absolutely right. Like Ja and them are not dancing in the locker room and shit. They're not doing the post-game shenanigans. Now all that kind of pressure has shifted to OKC. They've been that cute new shiny toy like they were last year. And this year, I think you're going to start to see the heel turn. Maybe in the playoffs, they start that barking shit. I have no problem with it. Thunder fans want to get at me on Twitter because they beat us without 7 guys on Sunday. It is what it is. But I think the heel turn for them is going to be different because these young teams, Thunder and Grizzlies, are so alike because you think about the Thunder, everybody just crowned them. And their only series win with this version of the Thunder has been the Pelicans without Zion Williamson. You can say the same thing about the Grizzlies. It's been Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns without Rudy Gobert. These two teams, what they do in the playoffs, I think define a moment on which young team will really be the crown and up next in this league.
Do you think Memphis got the short end of the stick? Because I remember when they were coming up, I remember we used to argue about it, and they were coming up, and people were like, oh, Memphis is cocky this, cocky that. But then you see kind of Minnesota and Ant-Man doing his cocky thing. You see OKC kind of doing their cocky thing. But nobody really cares. So do you think Memphis got the short end of the stick with that?
I don't. The Ja Morant, we're finding the West. I think that really ignited the flame. Like, you don't see Shea and Ant quite saying shit like that. But Ja is who he is. Me, like, I grew up like a little WWE fan. I like the heel. I like the talking shit. I like the theatrics. Dylan Brooks, I hated him for the final, several games of his tenure. But the fact that he said, I poke bears, that shit was hilarious. Him walking in as Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, it gives something that current NBA doesn't have. It's rivalry and shit talking. That's what I love about this team. I don't think they got the short end of the stick because they talked it and obviously didn't back it up. But it's something that I love about this team because that's how this city is. It's grit, it's hardworking, and whenever you see the franchise players behaving in the same way that the locals do, it's good to see.
No, listen, I definitely love it, and I think specifically Ja and Ant, they embody that type of confidence, that type of swagger, and I think it's much needed for the NBA because LeBron, Steph, KD, they won't be here forever. Kawhi and them boys, like their time is almost up. Well, probably up anyways. So you need that type of swagger for the league. And I think Ja, he's the perfect embodiment. I think he was on that trend until obviously certain things happen. But those are certain stars you got to book. You have to book. And I think he's one of those dudes.
And you're right, bro. Anthony Edwards is one of those guys too. I think Ant just received his 3rd fine in 3 weeks. He can't stop cussing in post game, but the shit's hilarious, bro. Like he's talking to reporters how we talk a lot of them is like, and us, we're part of the media. That's what we want. We want the real version of them. We don't want the bullshit PR training that they give us. And Ja and Ant are really good at being themselves.
No, I agree. Listen, Dewey, tell everybody where they can find you, man.
Yes, sir. Hampton.sports on TikTok and Hampton Sports on YouTube. Appreciate you so much for having me, bro.
Yeah. Listen, man, I try to tell the fans I'm going to try to do my best. I'm a busy guy. I have 30,000 jobs, but short, under 30 minutes. That's what I'm going to try to give them. Dewey, man, Memphis makes the playoffs, I'm coming out there, man.
Come on, you got a place to stay for real. You got a place to stay.
Nah, listen, I love that. That's love. I'm coming out there. I got to see Ja in person. I can't. I have to do it. I told a couple of my Orlando friends, I'm like, yo, playoff time, coming out there. Memphis, playoff time, I'm coming out there.
You'll like the ticket prices too, bro. It's a little bit different in the Garden. It's a lot more affordable, if you know what I'm saying.
Hey, yo, the Garden is bro. We paid. I'll never forget me and my friend Frank. Shout out to Frank. We were in Miller's one day. I don't know if you guys have Miller's. Miller's is like a steakhouse, and he was like, "Yo, Riff, you want to go to the Warriors game?" And I'm like, "Oh, hey, now this is 2 years ago. What? No, this might have been last year. When was it? This was it. It happened. So it was Warriors at Knicks, and I'm like, "Ooh, what's the prices on that?" He was like, "Hey, it's only like $280, solid seats." I'm like, "This is a fucking steal."
Yeah.
Bought it that same moment. Literally, the game was the next day. Bought it that same moment. That was the first and only time I've ever seen Steph live. He had 34 in the Garden.
God,
it was meant to be. But the Garden, bro, it's so disgusting, bro. The prices. It's truly
that's a bucket list for me, bro. I've always wanted to go up and see a game there. That is
no, the Garden it's lit. Don't get me wrong, it's lit. Barclays is also lit. I went to Barclays to watch Sabrina in the playoffs, and it was
God, I can't imagine. Yep.
No, the tickets, of course, obviously they not too crazy, but the atmosphere is dope. Like it was dope in there, so I love it. So I'll definitely hit you for Memphis. But thank you for pulling up. Thank you for giving me your time. We fellas, fans, we are about to go on playback. We're starting to play back up. Dewey, you can hop on playback anytime we watching the Grizzlies play, of course. Thank y'all for watching. You know, make sure y'all follow Dewey on his accounts. Follow Pick a Side. Follow Ja Morant Show, Weekly Blitz, Fantasy Reaction. Thank y'all for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.